This is the Outlap F1 podcast featuring America's own Cody, Andy, and Deanna. Your one-stop shop for Formula One news, insights, race previews, and reviews. Join us on the Outlap. Welcome on in, everybody. This is our last leg of the trip, the second triple header already of the season. We are only 8 rounds in, and it feels like we've done a lot of these. This is already our second triple header. This is crazy, but welcome on in. This is season 7, episode number 17 of the Outlap F1 podcast. This is where, according to a lot of people, this is where maybe the season could turn. Maybe. We'll see. It's our 2025 Spanish GP preview show. You've got Andy, and I'm along with Cody tonight. Cody, how's it hanging on it's starting to feel like spring, summer-ish around here, maybe. We're getting there.
Yeah, I can't really decide. Some days I go out and I'm like, oh, it's going to be a great day. And other days I go out and I'm like, man, it's still freaking cold. But yeah, I'm not going to lie. It's been a long, somewhat stressful week. I am looking very much forward to the weekend and just doing some normal things like cooking nice dinner and cleaning the house and enjoying some Formula One.
Yeah, it's going to be an interest. I'm going to have a bit of an F1 watching adventure. I am bringing my mobile internet up to the Northwoods
Right.
of Wisconsin, and so our next recording is definitely going to be a bit of a thing, with the half a second delay that I'm sure we're going to have to build into each other to make sure that the internet does its thing. But trying to do my normal setup there, I've never tried it before. The one other time that I got close, I actually kind of chickened out and stayed in a hotel so I could watch the race. And then drove the rest of the way up Sunday morning after the race ended. So
You're gonna put a lot of toll on your poor Wi-Fi with all those screens.
well, the good news is the cell tower is literally right next door. That's the great news, is that I'm going to have perfect reception. But I pay a good chunk of money for the unlimited plan, so we're gonna give that thing a workout. It's gonna be like on fire by the end of the race. I have a funny feeling. But anyway, if you have found our show, welcome along. As always, you can find us on Blue Sky, on X, on Instagram, sometimes on Discord, sometimes on Reddit, sometimes on YouTube. Well, a lot of times on YouTube. At Outlap F1 Podcast is the handle for all of those places. If you enjoy what you are watching and you enjoy what you're hearing and you like the analysis and what we bring, do us a solid. If you're on YouTube, click the like or the subscribe button. If you're on your favorite podcasting app and you're listening to us that way, that's perfectly legitimate. You get the lovely edited, better, maybe slightly better sounding podcast, because they have a chance to kind of clean it up a little bit. But you can leave us a 5-star review. We would love that as well. What does all that do? It just helps our stuff come up a little bit better in F1 related search results, for people who are looking for content like this. So if you'd like to do that, we would be most appreciative of it. You can email the show as always, outlapf1@gmail.com. We'll get your comments to us. Thank you so much to Outlap F1 Nation, who continues to step up and continues to support the show, especially to Dean Warwick, Yuri Dolchester, Paul Weaver, Quentin Warden, Kevin Kelly, Regan Stanzik, Timothy Brown, and of course, Jonathan Scott. If you'd like to become a member of that hashtag Outlap F1 Nation, get a shout out on the beginning of each show. If you can see our anchor page, it does ask for a small monetary donation. Do you have to do that? No, of course you don't. But if you'd like to do that, what that will do is help us put money back into the show and allow us to keep this lovely recording platform up and going and keep our technology relevant as like mobile internet for recording in the middle of the Northwoods of Wisconsin and all that other sorts of good stuff. So, that's what it's going to goes into stuff like that to try to keep us online and on the air and all that other good stuff for you. All right. Well, as we hop into the news with the particulars now out of the way, the obvious big news story is this has been on the calendar since before the season began. We knew that this was where it was going to come in. The Flexi Wing crackdown is here. The original FIA technical regulations used to state that when 100 kilogram of load is applied symmetrically to both sides of the car, the wing's vertical deflection must be no greater than 15 millimeters. When the load is only applied to one side, the vertical deflection must be no more than 20 millimeters. Starting this weekend in Spain, those tolerances have been brought down to 10 millimeters, so with the equal load, and 15 millimeters to the one side load, respectively. The FIA has also reduced the tolerance for the flexing of the front wing flap from 5 millimeters to 3 millimeters under a 6 kilogram load test. So we're probably going to see a whole bunch of new rear wing or new front wing and new front wing on all of the update and upgrade reports when those come out, probably right before FP1 starts tomorrow. So Cody, what's your thought on all this? Is this the game changer that everyone thinks it's going to be, or is it just going to be all the wings now do a little bit less flexing? What's your thought?
Uh, it's tough to say at this point, but with how close the cars are to each other at this point, with how close they are in single lap pace, and even at over the course of a race distance, a lot of the time at this point, any little change can make a big difference because we're seeing like top five cars in qualifying separated by nothing at times. So if there is one car that is getting a bigger benefit from the flexi wings than the others, and suddenly they don't have as much of an advantage there anymore, we might see a little bit of a change to the pecking order. Now, it's crazy to me that uh, the amount of dimensional change in the allowances here is so small. Like it's 5 millimeters. Or in the case of the tolerance for the flexing, it's 2 millimeters. So we're talking like really tiny amounts of changes to these regulations. But again, with how close the times are, fractions of a second pretty much every week here between many cars, not just like the front couple. Uh, that might be all it takes to make some sort of difference. So I guess that's me being very wishy-washy and saying, yeah, I don't really know how it's going to go yet. We also know that this has been, like you said, this has been coming down the pipe for a while now. So I'm sure uh, teams that have been utilizing the flexi wing have been working on alternatives for a while now too. So maybe they've got something else. Maybe if McLaren was really getting a pretty good boost from the flexi wing, maybe they've had time to put together some other setup here that's going to work almost as well. So we're going to have to wait and see.
Yeah, I mean, I did read some stuff. I think it was on Motorsport where Andrea Stella came out and said we actually ran a non-flexi front wing in FP1 in Imola, and that was on Lando's car. And I want to say that was, I think, the session where he might have ran in P1. So, granted, it's practice. You have no idea what everybody else is doing, and there might be other things going around with practice. And I always say, especially this season, look on the Fridays with a bit of skepticism because what you see on Friday is not what you're seeing even in FP3 anymore. It's not necessarily indicative of what you're going to see. It's really what the hell happens in Q3? Who executes better in Q3 seems to be who's getting it because, as you said, the cars are so close, especially over one lap pace. So everybody is going to overanalyze. I can't wait. Everyone is going to overanalyze every bit of the practice session and say, well, okay, if Lando and Oscar show up and they're like fifth and sixth in a session, I'm literally closing my computer and I'm staying off of social media. I'm not going to read any of it because it's just going to get crazy.
Unless
Um,
unless that happens in qualifying, I won't really
right,
think it made that big a difference. And even if it does happen in qualifying, you don't know just one time out. You don't know if it's the track characteristics that's just maybe not agreeing with one car over another. Like you really need a bigger sample size
right.
to know if it has made a huge difference or not. And
Yeah,
it's only one little part of the car too. I doubt this is like the magic potion that has made the McLaren work so well. They've probably got just a great overall design. Maybe they might be slightly less efficient if this was a big part of what they were doing, but I don't think it's going to like knock them way down the order or anything. If anything, they just might be getting a little more competition from Max or Mercedes or even Ferrari if Ferrari has brought upgrades.
yeah. I mean, what would concern me is if both Lando and Oscar are both at the same time on the same like simulated run or whatever it is, complaining about bouncing. That would annoy me, because the whole thing with the flexi wing is supposed to be that's what's taking the force of what you were seeing with the bouncing.
Mhm.
So the teams that went big into the flexi wings, that's how they cured the bouncing problem when the cars got as fast as they did under this regulation. So if I heard that, then I would think, oh, okay, something's off kilter. They're going to have to come up with some other way to get to the same downforce level and mitigate the bouncing. If they're not talking about bouncing and it's just a little bit slower, a little bit here, I'm not going to be too super worried about it. I think because they knew this was coming, they've everybody knew that this was coming. It's just not like they got sprung on you 4 weeks into the season. So I don't think this is going to be the ultimate game changer. Is it going to be a talking point? Absolutely. Is it something to talk about? Absolutely. That's why we're talking about it. But
Bigger than anything, the biggest impact I think this would have is if it makes the car feel different to the
right,
driver. So
right.
if you know Lando and Oscar have gotten used to how the car feels so far, and admittedly, Oscar's had a better time with the car as is than Lando so far, but yeah, these cars are so sensitive. Little changes can make the car feel great or awful. So that would be the biggest thing, is maybe the car is still really fast, but it gets a little harder to unlock that pace. The drivers aren't quite as comfortable with what they're feeling underneath them. That, I think, would have a bigger impact than just like the raw speed change from these, more stringent regulations.
Yeah. And I'm just going to say, I don't think you're not going to get any answers until after qualifying on Saturday. That's going to be your first actual data point, because regardless of who went into the qualifying feeling good or feeling not good, we've seen it so many times already this season, like where Red Bull is nowhere on Friday and they magically put uh whoever what is it? I think it's Sebastian Buemi into the simulator for 16 hours, and he comes out and he's got the magical setup
Mhm.
and it only works for Max. And when his teammate be damned. But and you've seen sometimes at places where the McLarens don't look as good in the opening couple practices, but then they can rally, going from Friday to Saturday too. Same thing with Mercedes. We've seen that with Ferrari has been able to do that at certain tracks too. So again, I'm not going to take anything for granted when it comes to the practices. I'm only really going to look at what happens in actual qualifying, and let's see who executes there. All right. So that's the Flexi Wing. That's the actual technical specification of the Flexi Wing, and we will see how that plays out this weekend. Another story that came out, it is now kind of understood, at least by motorsport.com, what the actual Max Verstappen exit clause that's been bandied about, if he's not in the top 3 or 4 or something, could he potential trigger an exit clause? And we've seen the rumors where Max has been talking to Toto Wolff and potentially a lateral move from Red Bull to Mercedes. And Toto Wolff has come out and said, well, why wouldn't you talk to Max Verstappen? He's the current world champion, and that would be the right thing to do. Well, it doesn't look like it's going to happen, at least for 2026, because the clause, as now it is now looks like it's come to light, would only apply if Max was outside of the top 4 by the Austrian Grand Prix. And currently, he's 57 points clear of 4th place. So Max would have to score no points,
Fifth
and
place,
Charles
right?
Leclerc, what?
57 points clear of fifth place, I think, which is
Fifth
like the
place. I'm
cutout.
sorry.
That's how far you
Correct.
have to be down,
Correct.
right?
Yeah, I'm sorry. He would have to drop 57 points to Charles Leclerc, who would have to basically win the next 3 races to pretty much get there. So it's really unlikely at this point that the exit clause could be even triggered. And it definitely looks like Max Verstappen will be continuing to drive for Red Bull in 2026. Cody, I imagine this gives you a bit of calm that you kind of know at least the short term future of your favorite driver and where he's going to be racing next year. But what's your thought?
Yeah, I think Max will probably succeed no matter what team he's in. But I've always been a big fan of Red Bull, pretty much for as long as I've been interested in the sport. So having my favorite driver at my favorite team is a match made in heaven, and I would prefer very much that he stays there. So yeah, it is nice that it looks like he's not going to be, taken like a backdoor out. The team is doing enough to support him right now that there's no verbiage in his contract, it seems, for him to get out. I'd actually originally heard that, through the rumor mill, that this might have even been more stringent. There's been talks for a while of this potential clause in the contract being there, but originally I was hearing that it could have been as stringent as outside of the top 2 in the points, which would have been pretty crazy. But yeah, it appears it's not quite so severe. It's top 4, so he still needs to be, in the top 20% of the drivers. But Red Bull was obviously swinging that just fine. So yeah, it looks like he's going to be there. Hopefully the next 3 years. Now, does this contract clause carry over each season? Because maybe Red Bull really sucks next year. We'll just have to wait and see. And then maybe at that point he takes the way out and goes to Aston Martin or Mercedes, or says to hell with it and goes to endurance racing. But yeah, it seems like at least next year he will be at Red Bull.
Yeah, so a bit of certainty for the current world champion there. Last news story before we actually are going to take a quick break before we hop into our track facts and all that other stuff. Victor Martins will be subbing in FP1 because there is also F2 and F3 this weekend in Spain. He will be subbing and he gets to drive for Alex Albon. So, it's always kind of interesting when we see a less experienced driver getting a more experienced driver's seat, and what that does kind of for the overall of the weekend. Does it hurt Albon a little bit? This could be a pretty critical weekend for Williams. You would think, given the characteristics of their car, given the characteristics of this track, would probably show pretty good here. And given the fact that, that car can sometimes be on a knife edge, we've seen it crash, we've seen it do really well. It's kind of an odd timing to kind of have it kind of really at this point of the season. You almost would expect these things to happen later on in the season. But Cody, what's your take on, is this just a great opportunity for Victor Martins, or do you think it's going to hurt Alex Albon enough, or at all, if at all? But what's your thought?
Nah, I don't think it's going to particularly hurt him. I think, they've got Carlos Sainz in the other car. So if there's any, hiccups endemic to that car at this track, I think they're going to be able to work out the kinks from Sainz. And I do think it's a good opportunity for Victor Martins. He is a pretty experienced driver, at least in the junior formulas. He's had a lot of success there, so I think it is really good for him to be getting that pre-practice in Formula One, get to show his stuff a little bit. And from what we've seen from rookie drivers over the last 2 seasons, you never know, he might end up in Formula One sooner than we think. I don't particularly think, though, missing out on the one practice session is going to really hurt Albon too much. He's still got 2 more to make it up, and got lots of experience at this track over the years. So I think he'll do just fine.
Yeah, so long as the car comes back to Williams in one piece, I think everything will be fine.
That is the big thing. Even though he is experienced in junior formula, you never know what's going to happen that first time in the F1 car, and if he completely craters it into the wall, that's not going to be fun for everyone who's got to try to patch that back together in time for FP2.
Yeah, exactly. But it's something we will keep our eye on as, of course, the weekend progresses as well. All right. Well, not a huge ton of news between Monaco and here because, like I said, this is the last leg of our triple header. So we're going to take a quick break. We'll re-rack real quick. We're going to come back. We're going to get into our track facts. We're going to talk about the venue. It's probably one of the few last times we may be here this year and maybe next year. And that might do it for a while for the Circuit de Catalunya. We'll tell you about all of the details with that track and why it is as good of a test track as it is. We'll talk about the weather. The weather is definitely going to play a factor, not necessarily because of the rain. The temperatures are going to be a factor this weekend. So we'll talk about that. And then we're going to hop into our predictions, try to figure out what we think is going to happen over the course of this weekend. And we'll finally wrap it up by telling you when and where to watch your F1 this weekend. Where can you find all the sessions and where do you need to tune into to catch the action as this last leg of the triple header and this potentially inflection point in the season weekend kicks off. So come on back. We'll hop into it in just a little bit. You are listening to the Outlap F1 podcast, and we'll be right back after this quick pit stop. Grab your flu powder, broomstick, or apparate to your favorite audio streaming service to join the discussion on Hogwarts, a podcast. where Dan and his friends have in-depth chapter-by-chapter breakdowns of each Harry Potter novel. Join the group as they dive into the magical world and discuss plot points, analyze character development, and occasionally go off the rails. Whether you're a muggle who's new to the series or a pure-blood wizard who won't need a remember-all, Hogwarts, a podcast, brings everyone to the Great Hall for a magical discussion. Hogwarts, a podcast, available wherever you get your podcasts. All right, welcome back on in. This is Season 7, Episode 17 of the Outlab F1 podcast. It's our 2025 Spanish GP preview. You've got Andy and I'm along with Cody tonight. And we just talked a little bit about the news that happened between Monaco and here. And now we're going to hop into our Grand Prix weekend proper. And we start, as we always are apt to do, with our Spanish GP track facts brought to us by the good folks at Pirelli Motorsport. So, Cody, as always, tell us about the Circuit de Barcelona, Catalunya.
All right. This weekend, Formula One heads to the Circuit de Barcelona, Catalunya. There we go. Located in Montmeló, Spain, which is a suburb of Barcelona. Number of laps for the Grand Prix is going to be 66, and the length of the circuit is 4.657 kilometers. That's 2.9 miles. Not going any softer with the tire compounds this time. We're going to have the C1, C2, and C3 tires, so the hardest on offer. And because of that, track characteristics from Pirelli are pretty much the same as they were last year. That's a 3 out of 5 for traction, 3 out of 5 for braking, 5 out of 5 for lateral load, 5 out of 5 for tire stress, 3 out of 5 for track evolution, 3 out of 5 for asphalt grip, a 4 out of 5 for asphalt abrasion, and a 4 out of 5 for downforce. The qualifying lap record was actually set last year under the current configuration without the chicane. That was a 1 minute 11.383 seconds set by Lando Norris. The race lap record, you got to go back one more season to 2023. That was set by Max Verstappen with a 1 minute 16.330 seconds. The most wins around this circuit is a whopping 6, and that is tied between two of the greatest of all time, Michael Schumacher and Lewis Hamilton. Max Verstappen, however, catching up. Hopefully he'll get a little closer this time. He has 4 wins currently here. Next best is Mika Hakkinen with 3. And then it is a 3-way tie with 2 wins apiece between Fernando Alonso, Kimi Räikkönen, and Nigel Mansell. Most constructor wins here is going to go to Ferrari at 8, Mercedes with 7, Williams with 6, also tied with Red Bull, which currently is at 6, 4 for McLaren, and then all the way down to 1 win with Renault. What's the circuit like, Andy?
All right. Well, it's either a love-hate relationship, because sometimes the drivers love it because they pound around a lot of time in testing, and sometimes they hate it because they know it probably way too well, and there's not a whole lot of chances for overtaking. But the track is a good mix of high and low speed corners, with the challenging turn 3 right-hander a great chance to evaluate the balance of your car that your team's designers have given you to fight with over the course of the season, especially with the flexi wing thing coming in. I'd imagine you may see some aero rakes and a whole lot of aero correlation happening, especially in FP1 this year. As for the weather, and I believe definitely that the weather is going to play a factor. Good news is you're not going to need the rain tire. It's going to be very, very sunny. It's going to be very hot. That's the problem. The highs are going to be near 85, so very, 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 very toasty. Winds out of the southeast at 10 to 15 for qualifying. A scant 5% chance of rain. I don't think we're going to see the rain tire. As for the race, again, sunny with a few clouds, high of 86, so even a bit hotter there. Winds out of the southwest, different direction this time, at 10 to 15. So, again, a scant 5% chance of rain according to the weather app that we were using. But it's the classic test track as you got it. We've pounded around it for years and years and years. We're just not doing it this year. It will be back on the testing calendar next year. But there are some natural places to overtake. The best place probably going into turn 1. And then sometimes we've seen moves in the reprofiled turn 10. Since they got rid of the chicane, the lap times have come way down by like 4 and 5 seconds. I remember the normal race runs used to be in like the mid 120s. Now we're seeing race lap times in the mid 117s. So very, very a lot quicker. The lap goes by a lot faster. It does not let you let up the entire time you're on it, except when you're on the straight. So it's a very, very physical challenge. Going to be hot, so expect to see the cooling suits and all that other good stuff this weekend. All right, so we will move into our predictions game. This one's tough. I had a few times where I went back and forth. I'm like, do I use my head? Do I use my heart? Where am I? So I came up with something that's kind of in the middle of both, and we'll see if that works or if I pull a Monica and totally screw it up again. But anyway, we shall see what we do. We shall start with the pole sitter. Cody, what you got here? Who's taking the pole at in the Spanish GP?
I'm going to go with Max Verstappen. Part of me is hoping that the flexi wing clamp down affects McLaren a little bit more than the other drivers or other teams, excuse me. So I'm hoping that gives Max a little bit of an advantage. Also, this track is a pretty high speed track, which seems to be favoring the Red Bull so far this season. And this is a track that Max Verstappen has had a lot of success at in the past. So I think all of that adds up to him having a pretty good shot at pole.
Very good. Oscar Piastri, I'm looking at you. Is it time to get pissed off? Because pissed off Piastri, we know, is a thing. He's had two kind of not great weekends. He had the great pole in Imola, but he couldn't follow it up with the race result. And he had just a bad Monaco weekend, I think, by his standards. So if you want to be the world champion, Oscar, if you want to really be in this fight, here's where you got to show it. So I'm going to say Oscar Piastri steps up, takes the pole, quiets the doubters a little bit here. So that's where I'm going there. All right. So moving on, where do we have our pole lap time? Last year's pole lap time set by Lando Norris was a 111.383. Cody, what you got here?
I do think we're going to break into the 1 minute tens here. Going with kind of the ballpark I've been going with so far all season is more or less a half a second faster than last year's time, which I think was pretty good weather. So I'm going to go with a 1 minute 10 seconds 0.789.
All right, very good. I'm also thinking we're going to be faster. It seems like we're going to be really close on these lap times. I have a funny feeling. So I'm close to you. I'm a little bit slower than you are. I kind of took the over versus the under, but I went at 110.952. All right, so we will turn our attention to the race predictions. Last year's podium was Max Verstappen taking the win with the awesome opening stint and turn one overtake. Lando Norris coming home in P2, not able to challenge Max at the end. And Lewis Hamilton, let's don't forget, also goes pretty well around this track in the Mercedes last year, came home on the podium as well. All right. I'll go first with the podium. If I'm saying that this is the Oscar Piastri where we see the pissed off version, I got to be consistent here. So I got Oscar Piastri taking the win. I do think Max Verstappen is going to be a thorn in the proverbial McLaren side all weekend. I don't think he's going anywhere. I've got him coming home in P2. I think it's going to be close. I don't think it's going to be a multiple second thing. It may be one of those 2-3 second final things coming down to the end type of races. And I've got Lando Norris still being in the game, but I don't know that this is the track that on race pace suits him the best. I'm just thinking he might qualify good. He may be in like P2 for qualifying, but I don't know if he's going to hold it in the race. I want to see it, Lando. I really do. But you gotta be a little headstrong here. So I've got him coming home in P3. Cody, what you got for your race podium?
Definitely some different stuff going on for my predictions. Now, I will admit that there is a certain amount of hope going into this podium prediction because I'm really hoping that Max can really close up the gap to Piastri is hanging out at one race's worth of points distance. I'm sure he could close that up over many races, but I'd like to see it happen a little faster. So, kind of going on vibes here. I got Max Verstappen taking the win, which, if he's able to get pole, he's been competing for wins most races this season. So I don't think that's too far out there. Also, Lando Norris coming off of his Monaco win, probably got a big boost to his confidence. I think he's, looking like he's right back in that championship hunt. So I think that's going to carry into this race. And I do think Lando Norris is going to take P2. And then for some reason, I've got a feeling that Oscar Piastri is just going to maybe not perform quite as well this weekend. I know this sounds very strange because he's performed great at just about every race, at pretty much every race this season. But if there's anything that's going to throw him off of his game, it's going to be the fact there's going to be differences to the car now. We don't know how much difference that's going to make. just yet, but I think he's going to not be on the podium this time out. So I've got that podium slot, the last one being filled up by Charles Leclerc.
Ferrari race pace could be a thing. That's definitely a possibility there. I've been saying that for weeks now. All right. So we'll get into who do we think is going to be the fastest lap time and who is going to set that fastest lap time. The 2024 fastest lap was 117.115 set by Lando Norris in his pursuit of Max Verstappen that he couldn't quite get there. I'll go first on this one. I'm going to give this one again. If I'm tripling down, I got faith in Mr. Piastri here. I think he's going to probably get the fastest lap, even though he won't get the point for it. I've got a 117.387 for my lap time. Cody, what's your thought on the fastest lap and the driver?
I do think that the angry Oscar Piastri is going to come into play here. So if something happens like my vibes are saying and he ends up down the order, he has shown several times this year that he can really fight back from that. So I think that if that happens, we're going to see Oscar on a mission and he's going to set fastest lap. And I think it's going to be a really good one. I think we're going to actually be in the 116s here, like we saw in 2023. That's going to be a 1 minute 16.427.
All right. All right, so we will move into our bonus picks, and you've selected P4, P5, and P6, which I like because it makes this very, very interesting. Trying to predict the top six. How well have we done this? Not well, but we'll see. Maybe this is the weekend where that'll change. I'll let you go first, Cody. What you got here for bonus picks?
I have Piastri on the podium, but I don't have him far off of it. I've got Piastri in fourth place. I've got George Russell in fifth place. He's been, pretty much had his name on anything from P2 to P5 so far this year. I think that with how hot it is, it's probably not going to be Mercedes' best weekend. That they seem to have been better on the colder race weekends. So I think he's going to be in fifth. So not too bad. And then I think it is going to be another really good weekend for Alex Albon. I've got him coming in P6.
Very good. I've kind of flip-flopped a little bit with you here. I've got Charles Leclerc coming in P4. I do think Ferrari race pace is definitely going to be a thing. I think they will have to claw through the field a little bit. I don't know that they're going to qualify so great here. George Russell, I do have coming home in P5, probably because I think that's probably where the car is kind of limited. I do think because it's going to be so hot. I don't see them being right on the heels of the top two teams here as much. I think this next stretch is going to they're going to come back to earth a little bit. I don't think you're going to see really good Mercedes unless Austria gets cold or wet until Silverstone, which I know there's a lot of Mercedes fans out there that probably don't want to hear that, but I just think this is the part of the season where the sun is going to be out. It's going to be hot. So unless it's wet, which is not supposed to be here, I don't see Mercedes really being on form. Perhaps they will prove me wrong. But for P6, I've got Lewis Hamilton coming in there as well. I do think he's still behind his teammate a little bit in acclimating to the car. I think he'll have a decent result. He'll have a decent day, but I don't think it's up to where he would want to be. And the Ferrari fans will continue to go crazy and call for Fred Vasseurs' head after this race. All right, so moving on, our prop bet. This was an interesting one. I did not expect this when I opened the document, but Cody, you said how many McLarens are going to be on the podium? I think we already kind of told you. I've got both of them. I think we're going to have a double podium. I think it's going to be pretty much, other than Max, I don't see anybody else really getting into the arena of a race win yet. I may be proven wrong by that. We'll see if this flexi wing thing, what it does. But Cody, I can see what you've got because you've already kind of predicted your podium. What you got?
Yeah, I figured this could have been my chance to hedge my bet here a little bit. And, with my crazy Oscar not on the podium prediction. I did not hedge my bet, though. I do have it matched up with my podium of only one McLaren on the podium. So I'm doubling down here. Maybe something crazy will happen, and there will be no McLarens on the podium, and then we're going to both be flabbergasted and have a lot to talk about.
That's true.
On the review.
I will have plenty to talk about. I will either be lighting somebody on fire, or lighting the team on fire, or lighting an opponent on fire. Somebody's getting lit on fire if that happens. Let's put it that way. So you won't want to miss the review if that ends up happening, because if my hat goes flying in northern Wisconsin, I don't know if I'm getting it back. Let's put it that way. But when and where can you watch your Formula One this weekend? FP1, which we'll see how revealing all of these practices are. But that kicks off 7:25 a.m. Eastern, bright and early. These are also kind of your standard European times. ESPN Family of Networks, and of course F1 TV, if you are subscribed to that, are your places to watch if you are within the US of A. So 7:25 a.m. Eastern, ESPN2. So 6:25 a.m. Eastern. Ooh, that's a bit early. FP2 kicks off 10:55 a.m. Eastern. That's on ESPN2. FP3. This is the bad one. 5:30 a.m. wake up for me on Saturday. Woo, that's gonna be fun. ESPN 6:25 a.m. Eastern. Again, ESPN2 is your home for all of that. The critical qualifying kicks off 9:55 a.m. Eastern. That's on ESPN2, and the race itself will be on Big ESPN main channel. The pre-race kicks off 7:30 a.m. Eastern, with the main race kicking off at 8:55 a.m. Eastern as well on ESPN2 or on ESPN main channel. If you want to try and if you don't have F1 TV and you want to get some of the onboards, if you have ESPN Plus, there are going to be some selected onboards available to that, so you can try to match up your stream that way. Which I would highly recommend, because I think it gives you a whole lot of other perspective as to what's going on when you're listening to the different radio calls, especially when they get close to the pit stops. But again, take in your F1 as you like. I'm just giving you what I do. But anyway, Cody, any final thoughts as we hop into probably going to be a very, very interesting weekend? It's going to have a lot of eyes on it for sure.
It's definitely going to have a lot of eyes on it. In fact, I'm actually ready to be thoroughly entertained by just how extreme the over-analysis gets during the practice sessions, like you were talking about before. We're going to see so many camera shots of like, oh, is the wing actually flexing? Do they actually try to find some way around it?
Arrows, lots of arrows.
Yeah, lots of arrows, lots of close-ups. It's going to be a fun one. If anything, just for that. Occasionally, the Spanish Grand Prix has been a bit of a snoozer, but I think this one's going to be fun. It's just another gut feeling.
Yeah, I mean, especially if we can somehow get it to be a two-stopper. If it's just a standard one-stop, and I think that up temperatures may help with that. So, I mean, if the one thing I know you don't want to see is all 20 cars all on the C1 tire just pounding around a test track that's kind of difficult to overtake, that would be bad. If we get to there, I may even put something out about it and just said, well, we've reached FP1 territory or testing territory. Here we go again. But anyway, I'm here all for the ups and the downs. Like I said before, I have to ride this roller coaster, because if you say you want to be at the front, this is what you got to do. You got to ride the roller coaster for the good and the bad. I think, personally, I think McLaren is going to be fine. I don't know that they'll be as dominant. I don't think, because this isn't like a Miami circuit. I think it's going to be a fight. I think Max is definitely going to give us one heck of a fight, like he always does. We're going to see who comes out on top. So I'm here all about it. We will be back either Sunday or Monday, depending on how well my internet's working, as long as I can get it up and going. Well, we're probably going to try it on Sunday night to do a race review and try to get the race review out early next week as we can, to try to get that all to you. But again, I'm looking forward to this weekend. We'll see what all the twists and turns that it holds. So for Cody, it's been Andy. As always, folks, may all your laps be fast.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of the Outlap F1 podcast. If you like what you heard, click that subscribe button and be sure to leave us a 5-star review. If you want to connect with us outside of the show, check out our website at www.outlapf1.com. Find us on Twitter and Instagram at OutlapF1 Podcast, or email us at chatnow@outlapf1.com. As always, thank you so much for your support, and we'll see you on the next one.